Start to look at entities, cords, removing entities, clearing the womb, charging the astral body, and we'll look at some information around these topics. There's a very fine line between teaching somebody how to heal themselves and healing them. And in level 1, we're really staying on this level of teaching somebody to heal themselves. But as we become more proficient in working in this non-dual way, as in there's no separation between you and your client and their energy bodies, and you're very empathic in the moment and you can work with your intuition, then this line between healing them and teaching them to heal becomes very thin, because on another level they are you. So you have to use your discernment in, is it okay to take away, transform entities in somebody's body? Is it okay to start to clean the thyroid gland so it doesn't get cancer, or the womb, or the cervix, or the anus? Is it okay to come into their energetic body and cut cords, where really the process is learning to forgive so that that cord isn't there anymore, so they're not a vibrational match? So it's a very fine line. And when you get to the place that, well, there is no separation between you and them, and on one level you are this person, so why do you want this unhealed, traumatized manifestation of God to be part of you? It is you, so why don't you help? So then in those moments, maybe the best thing is to cut their cords, to clear their entities, to clean their womb and their organs and their glands. But then there's another moment where the best thing is for them to realize there is a problem and how to heal themselves. And that's the best thing for them, so it's the best thing for you. So you really have to start to use your own discernment when to cross this line. And crossing this line, from my perspective, holds some risks for you. So you might not want to cross it. And as we move out of this abstract realm of teaching Kundalini bodywork as a practice and a framework that you can apply, and we start to look at entities and the astral world and cords, I have to take you a little bit into my world and how I see things and how I work and practice this, which isn't necessarily the truth. Because it's my world, it's the way I experience reality, and we're all here to experience reality in a different way, because consciousness wants to have a multitude of experiences. If we all saw everything and practiced everything in the same way, consciousness would get very bored. It's great, there's a lot of planets, it's great that we're all different, we have different personality types and different astrology, and we should embrace these things. So as we come into my way of working energetically, don't lose yourself. Keep checking in. What's true for me? What else have I learned? Does this really resonate? Because nothing that I'm going to say is an absolute truth. So we're going to learn some hand movements and some different ways to work with entities and cutting cords. But when you can, open your crown, bring this higher dimensional energy, divinity into your body, work with the energy through your hands. Every session is a dance, it's a relationship with your client, which is just supporting them to heal themselves. So how you apply working with energy is going to be different for everybody. So in relation to dimensions, this is how I understand reality. It's a little bit like a clock. So first dimension, singular dot, just singular point, pure awareness. Think of an atom or quarks or the string theory, or there's just a singular point of consciousness. Then we get into a two-dimensional reality. That's polarity. Things split into two. But polarity doesn't really exist without being in a third-dimensional reality. And that gives us shape and definition. And this is where the paradox of life starts to come into form, this 3D structure. And a fourth-dimensional reality is a 3D object moving through space. And a fifth-dimensional reality is our emotions. It's stepping into this multiverse of unlimited possibility, where this line between surrender and free will is really a thing. Because some people will say we don't have free will, it's all defined. So destiny is real and we don't have any choice, and we just play out our karma and we live our dharma, and whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And this has a level of truth to it. But then if you look in quantum physics, it says every possible outcome has already happened. So in that level of probability, every potential reality exists. So everything that could possibly happen has happened or has the potential to happen. So in that sense, we do have free will. We're just deciding which version of reality we're putting our consciousness in to experience. So if we get out of a fourth dimensional reality of linear time, you die, you're born, this happens, this happens, this happens, and time is just linear, then in that sense you don't really have free will, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But if you get into a fifth dimensional experience of reality and you realize there's different versions of you that you can tune into, and that information can come into your spine, and that also creates activations when you line up with other potential versions of you and you suddenly know things that you didn't already know, then this fifth dimensional reality of being able to move back and forth through time and the present, affecting the future, and also changing the past, this becomes a little bit more of a scary place to live, and quite often we want to ground back down into fourth dimensional reality. And in this level, there's more entities, astral beings, forms of consciousness that don't have a physical body, that aren't grounded in matter, that aren't defined by the laws of physics, like gravity, in the same way that we are. And in one sense, what yoga is teaching you is to develop acidic powers or virtues so that you can start to relate with reality in a different way, that you have a different relationship to matter, that you can move things with your mind, that you can affect nature, that you can get on a surfboard and create a wave, that you can will it to be a sunny day. So we start to create more powers and virtues within ourselves to be in relationship with reality. So we're co-creating with reality. So we'll often jump between this fourth dimensional reality and this fifth dimensional, and the entities, spirits, astral entities, deities, they'll hang out on a fifth dimensional level, on a sixth, on a seventh. When we get to an eighth dimensional level of consciousness, this is more a culmination of consciousnesses. It's like ascended masters. It's a lot of very highly evolved forms of consciousness that aren't really separate anymore, but are still separate. So you can tune in to the 21 ascended masters, or however many ascended masters you think there are, and you can channel this in. You can channel Christ's consciousness, Jesus, Buddha awareness, Mother Teresa, Bodhisattva. And then beyond that, I don't really know what happens. The way I understand it, it's just my understanding, 9, 10, 11, 12. When we get into like 9th, 10th levels of reality, it seems to be more of a galactic consciousness. Planets have a form of consciousness. The whole universe is incredibly intelligent. Mercury in our solar system is a form of consciousness, as is Saturn, as is Jupiter, as is Uranus. But then there's the Milky Way, and then there's different constellations and different galaxies, and these also have a much bigger consciousness than us that I have no way of understanding at all. And then we get to this 12th level of consciousness. This is kind of God, absolute oneness, the innate intelligence of the universe that we can tune into, and then as we tune into it, it listens to us. And then when we get to this 12th level, we come back to a singular point of awareness, a singular point. So it's kind of a little bit like a clock. And often spiritual development is getting through these levels of consciousness, at least to an 8th level, or all the way up into God, and then you're back into nothingness. It's samadhi. You've blown out the candle. Your soul, your spirit, your vibration doesn't exist anymore. So when we come, in my world, in my understanding, to an astral understanding, that in this 4th, 5th dimensional reality, and dimensions are multiple, so depending what you're explaining, a dimension will mean something and look in a different way because it doesn't have matter, it's not defined by physics. When we come into this 4th dimension, or in this 5th dimensional level of the astral world, It still exists in linear time, but it's full of nature spirits, beings, energetic thought forms, astral entities, and these can be lower astral entities and higher astral entities. And if you think of Christianity, 72 angels, 72 demons, it's this perfect way of understanding polarized existence. And from one level, we're creating that astral or spiritual experience from the information that we have in our bodies. So if we're incredibly connected to Native American shamanism, then when we close our eyes and we go into these states and we understand information from somewhere else, we're probably going to see totems and eagles and jaguars and nature spirits and be very, very close to nature. If we're in a Japanese Shinto religion, then we'll have a different relationship to the consciousness of a tree, the essence of a river, to the meaning of the wind. We'll have a very different relationship to reality. If we're from a Christian faith and we go into this place, maybe we'll see Gabriel and Michael and Raphael and Oriel and the kind of four guardian angels and Metatron, because that's where our consciousness is, that's our culture. If we're Muslim, we might be scared of this work because we think we're putting jinns into the body, and there's helpful jinns and non-helpful jinns. If we're a Buddhist, we're going to see Tara and the healing Buddha, and it's all being created by the information that's already in our body, what we're aligned to. So we have these different experiences. We can only see what we already know. So when you're in that level of the astral, it really is you projecting itself out into the world. And my experience of dreaming, I hope this is all going in. It's kind of a lot of information, but I said I would take you into my world a little bit. So when I dream, I can dream in two places. I can dream where everything's just a reflection of myself. I'm the people in the room. Sometimes I'm witnessing myself from somebody else's perspective. I dream in my childhood home, places that I've worked, places that I've spent a lot of time. My mind just constructs it, and you know exactly where it is and where the bedroom is, and I'm just in my own little world. And then sometimes I'll dream in the astral. And that's a bit more dangerous because I'm not in my projected place of my subconscious mind is just playing itself out and creating information. You dream in the astral world, then other people are there too. And there's entities and beings, and they have free will, and some of them are malicious and some of them want to help you, but everything has an agenda, and you can meet your friends and you can communicate, but you're not safe in that way because it's not your subconscious mind. You know, if somebody knew you and they could get into the astral and make you a little bit slightly more unconscious, they could probably get the PIN number for your credit card because you would be saying it in your mind as you're becoming unconscious and you think they're them. So you have to just be a little bit careful of astral travel, leaving your body. So this astral world is kind of different to your dream world in your subconscious world. So when we look at entities, astral beings, thought forms, mostly they're not divine. They don't have a sense of consciousness as we do. So astral entities, they need chi, they need light, they need your divinity. They kind of need to feed on you. They need us to exist in order for them to exist. But for the most part, we're creating them. So if you continuously have a thought, maybe you're addicted to gambling, and you're just constantly wanting to gamble, wanting money, wanting the risk, wanting the excitement, then you have the resistance to it, and then there's more desire, and then you say no. It's this energy of gambling and addiction, and you create it and you cultivate it in your body, and it becomes very real. This desire is very big, and the addiction is very big, and that pattern is there, and it's this thought form. And one day you're just like, that's it, I quit. Where does it go? What does it do? It just goes out into the world. And now there's this little entity of addiction and gambling running around trying to lock into somebody's body. And if they're a vibrational match, if in the past they've gambled and they've enjoyed it, now they're a vibrational match for this entity that you've created, and now it's jumping into them and suddenly they're gambling a lot more. So these energetic beings, these lower astral entities, we need to take responsibility for them, that everything is a reflection of us, of who we are, in the same sense that every angel is also a demon in its polarized sense, because that's how we understand reality. So instead of being scared of these things, this entity is inside of me, or it's attached to me, or I have this thought form that's progressive, when we can take responsibility for them, it's much easier to transform them. And when we understand what they are and how they were created through a lot of desire, a lot of attachment, a lot of emotion, a lot of thought, a lot of energy. All of these things are energy. So we're creating them. So as we create these negative entities, be it addiction, lust, sexuality, they really exist. Now, let's say you had a lot of lust, and then this energy of lust became bigger, and then somebody identified with it as a being, and then this being that you created started to court a lot of people, and it got a lot of chi, and it got a lot of prana, and now it's pretty much got an astral body. It has shape, it has form. We're all going to see it differently because we're perceiving reality. And then somebody else decides to worship this being, and they light candles for it, and they give it offerings, and for thousands of years they've worshipped this demon or this deity or this being. Now it's pretty defined. Maybe it's a 5,000-year-old demon. It pretty has an ego. It really exists. So this is on a much different level to these lower astral beings and thought forms that we create. But still, these astral entities that live in the spirit world, that live in the 6th, 7th dimensional reality, are still part of us. So we don't want to be afraid of them in a sense, but they are much more capable of coming into somebody's body and taking over because they're really defined. You don't find them very often, but you do find them sometimes. And if you think of Christianity and they say don't worship a false god or a false idol, and that this is a sin, it's a very gray area, because a lot of deity worship in Hinduism is a very fine line between if you're worshipping something that's holy and divine or if you're worshipping something that's a demon. Most deities are depicted as liking gold, luxury. There's a very selfish nature to them. We worship them so much that they become part of who we are. So deity worship, tantric or tantric embodiment isn't necessarily bad, but isn't necessarily good either, because if you start to worship an entity or a deity as much as you think that this is Lakshmi and it's the goddess of abundance and it's going to give you ultimate wealth and prosperity, and she just wants you to be happy, so you're like, oh my god, I love Lakshmi, that's awesome, she just wants me to have lots of money and a nice house and tells me that I'm worth it and I should embody my inner god or my inner goddess, and the whole of life is a reality. So you start to worship this entity. It can bless you in many ways. It can really enhance your life, and that allows us to create society and structure. So it's not good and it's not bad, it's really your relationship in how you worship Lakshmi, as an example. So if we just go back a step to talk about polarity and how we're creating our reality and what we're a vibrational match for, if we start to worship Lakshmi from a place of wanting, you could think of surrender and devotion and look at the difference between them. So in level 2, to activate our body, we really need to go into a place of surrender or devotion. But surrender is receiving. When we surrender, we receive. Oh, okay, I receive so much from a positive perspective. And devotion is you give so much. But it's a paradox, because the more you give to Lakshmi, the more you're devoted, the more you receive. So we have to start to see this relationship to giving and receiving is very important. So if we're just surrendering to Lakshmi because we want a lot of money and we have a lot of greed and we have a lot of selfishness, Lakshmi is not really this divine essence of Lakshmi anymore that we're being in devotion to be a better person. It's much more of a satanic, dark, evil, selfish entity that we're worshipping to be better than our peers and better than our competitors. So the entity that's coming into your body is very different. They live in a very dualistic sense of reality in relation to energy, because they're not divine. They don't have access to fifth dimensional divinity through the body in the way that we do. In my world, in my understanding. So then everything is, you ask for something and it takes something. It's all about balance. So if you're working with darker forces and darker energy, it's often about balance. So it all comes back to your intention, your personal desire. What do you want to get out of working with entities? And for a large part of Kundalini activation, from my perspective, that's what it is. You're laying down and you're opening yourself in these astral realms. You're opening your chakras in these astral realms in a group container, much like when you sleep, not in your closed world, but you sleep in the shared astral world. And you're laying down and you're surrendering. You're receiving a lot of information. You're in devotion to something. So these entities and these astral beings have total access to your body. And if you look at the biggest criticism of Kundalini activation work is, what are you guys doing? Why are you letting demons in your body? Don't you know this is going to ruin your life? Just please go back to Jesus. You hear these messages a lot. And for some people, they have a point. But if you actually do your spiritual work in the right way, and it's for a selfless reason, you don't need to be scared of these things, because it's helping you enhance your consciousness so that we can build a better society and be stronger people. People will tell you that you're paying $40 to lay on a yoga mat and they've met a guru and now they're basically going to put this 12th dimensional higher level of consciousness into your body, and now you're at one with God and you're going to shake it out and you have a nice experience. That is not Kundalini. Kundalini is a word that we can't define. If you want to take it from my perspective, it's this spiritual store of energy, and it's much more a process. So when you're fully aligned and everything's active, a very higher version of yourself, your oversoul if you like, is coming into your body. And it's so powerful, it transforms all sickness and disease and rewires your nervous system, and you quit all your addictions and everything's melted away and you just live in bliss forever. And your third eye's open and you're basically Jesus. You can walk on water. We're letting really nice energy into our body. Often we're running a lot of orgasmic energy through our body. We're learning to run positive orgasmic energy through our feminine pathway. You're letting deities and astral beings into your body that can heal you, that can give you a nice experience, that can open your heart, that can open your solar plexus, that can take away your physical pain, because they are part of you and they want you to be happy and successful. So it's not bad, but it's not really the essence of Kundalini. That's something much bigger. So when we talk about Kundalini activations, it's not what we're doing. And a lot of people have negative experiences. They contact me, they do the course. There was one woman, she was about to run a yoga festival. There was a Kundalini activation practitioner who wanted to hold a session in the festival that she was organizing. So she's clearly a competent woman somewhere in Germany. She went to her activation or had a one-on-one session. And then afterwards, her energy system's smashed, she's totally depressed, she can't organize the festival anymore, she feels like she's being raped every night by entities, and her whole body is being destroyed. So in those activation spaces, you just have to be really careful. So when we come back to a very practical way of working, a lot of people have negative thought forms, low astral energies sticking around their body. They might meditate, they feel like I have a third eye, something's getting stuck on their throat, maybe they've got a few cords in their back, which might not be people, it might just be very mild things. And these are easy to clear just by shaking, having a scream, getting trauma out your body, reclaiming your sovereignty. So much of this work is just creating energetic sovereignty, your relationship to your divine, so that you don't need entities. You have no attachment. You're creating a desireless state in your being. But it's a paradox because you need desire to manifest to create reality. So you keep having to look at not the contradiction, the paradox of desire. But in this state of creating sovereignty, you're pretty needless. You can just come from a state of discernment. So when we create this level of understanding within our body, we're very safe. But you'll find some people with mental health problems, with addiction, with a lot of sexual issues, a lot of health problems, when they just want to lay in a room on their own and be in the dark and they've got no more motivation for life. Quite often they have an entity living in their body that's just sucking all the chi and the prana from their vital glands. It's often living in your womb. And whatever entity is in your body, there's a correlating match to the thoughts that are in your mind. So whenever you're clearing the entity, we're taking it out of the body. Most often they like to live in organs and glands because these have more chi, and they're also in your mind because the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, the brain and the gut are very, very connected. So as you clear it from the body, in the same way that we're learning to balance the hemispheres at the end, we're also clearing the thought forms, the entity from the mind. So it's very helpful if someone is blocked and they can't clear it themselves, and all the screaming and the moving and the shaking and all of this isn't working. And you just feel, I don't know what's going to help this person, but you do know how to take the entity out of the body. But then if you're a vibrational match for this entity, is it going to attach to you? Is having this entity this person's karma? Who are you to change this person's karma? And is it safe for you to do that? So this is that fine line we were talking about. If I take this entity out of the body, if you don't do a good job of dissolving it, it's just going to run around and jump into somebody else. Is it going to come back into you? If you send it back to where it came from, is that going to create a problem? So you have to kind of have this discernment. And if somebody lays down and I feel, yeah, I'm totally not a vibrational match for what they're working for. This person is in therapy, they're doing personal development work. Clearly, they have a good heart. I feel like they're a good person. I feel okay. I'm going to take this entity out of their body. And I'll do it. But I don't have to. Just because they're paying me money, I don't have to do that. That's me imposing my free will into their reality. So what we're going to learn is how to cut cords and remove entities and dissolve them into a different place. And the way we learn to do this is very similar in understanding how they're created. So if we go back to how astral beings are created, a lot of desire, a lot of emotion, a lot of attachment, a lot of thought, a lot of energy being created, you'll find entities in pornography sites where there's a lot of money, in dark, horrible places, in gambling, in pubs, in clubs, in anywhere where there's a lot of attachment, negative energy, desire, people who aren't working on themselves, you can go and pick these up. So if you want to learn about entities, you can go to these places, look for them. Probably shouldn't suggest that, it's quite intense shadow work, but if you really want to feel that are these real, just find a nasty witch who practices demonology, piss her off, wait till she attacks you, and then you'll have a real experience. You'll have an actual spiritual experience of astral attack, and then you'll figure out how to cleanse yourself and heal yourself and push it back, and you'll think, fuck, I'll never do that again. But then you might, because you learn a lot through doing that very intense shadow work of picking up other people's demons and making people attack you with their mantras and whatever it is they do. Just be careful for like really dark, black, sludgy stuff in the spine. It's hard to get rid of. But don't blame me for doing that if it doesn't work out right, because it might work out really badly. But that's kind of those initiations of your heart. Are you strong enough to do it? we're going to learn to dissolve entities in the same way that they're created. So they're created because they exist in 3 places at once. So for anything to exist on the internet, it needs to exist in 3 places at once. Or in some countries, if you want to own something electronically, you have to prove that you have 3 copies of it in 3 different places, otherwise it doesn't legally exist. So an entity is kind of like that. It needs to exist in 3 different places, just like we do, because everything's a trinity, everything's a paradox, everything is changing places. So in order to dissolve an entity, we have to work in 3 different places at the same time. We have to take it out of the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and then when we dissolve it, we have to have 3 different places to dissolve it. So I just work with divinity. It's very clean energy. As we've seen a picture of it, it's this blue webby stuff. If you look at pictures of how people presume string theory looks, what's beyond nothingness, kind of looks like this. That's the energy that we're working with. You can call it divine, you can call it quantum, you can call it non-dual, the void. As many words as you can give it, the better, because then it's existing in at least 3 different places at once. And then your mind's not saying, oh, I know what it is. Because as soon as your mind says, I know what it is, it's in a box and it doesn't know anything. It just knows what it's looking at. But when you can open up to it existing in at least 3 places at once, you're going to dissolve it in at least 3 places at once. So we're always working holistically, and you should keep seeing the pattern of Kundalini bodywork, of this therapy showing up everywhere. So I channel divinity down my spine, I find it in my hands, till I've kind of got a sense of this energy's here, and then I open up a vortex. So a vortex is like a portal to a different place. You'll find in some activation places, people are going around the room and they're opening portals in order for astral beings and deities and entities to come through, because then they've got a way in. So portals are a very real thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to open a portal to 3 different places at once. And these 3 places that I use is the black sun, so the polarized version of our sun. It's in occultism, it's the feminine sun. If this is the sun of life, it's the sun of death. Not to say that feminine is about death, it's just polarity. So I'll open a portal to the black sun. And at the same time, I'll open a portal to the planet Saturn, the planet in the sky, the one with the rings. I've done this in 2 trainings. Everybody thought we were sending entities to Satan, and they didn't tell me until the 2nd course. So we're not sending energies to Satan, it's the planet Saturn. Saturn governs time, and that's the reality that we live in. And if a soul becomes too divergent, it's made too many mistakes, too much trauma, it can't really heal from all the terrible things that it's done, definitely not within the next 7 lifetimes, it's just too much, then that soul, that spirit, however you want to understand it, is going back into Saturn to dissolve into nothingness. It's like a very negative samadhi. It turns into nothingness. So I'm opening this portal to the black sun, to the planet Saturn, and to my understanding of the void, a black hole, nothingness, to non-dual awareness. It's not really bad, it's not good, it's just purity. However you want to understand the void, a black hole. I get a sense of these 3 things in my body. So the male sun, the feminine sun is a state of polarity, the void, nothingness, is a state of non-duality where everything is pure potentiality, and Saturn is a physical place where time and karma ceases to exist, where it's burnt away. So we're working with time, space, and energy. And I open this portal, and then you're just going to make something up, really. Whatever you do, it's about your intention and your relationship with the energy, with the entity. So you create a lot of energy in your hand, I kind of create a net, and in this net, once I feel like it's substantial and I can kind of see where the entity is, I can feel it, you can muscle test if you don't have that sense yet. You throw that net of divinity over where you think it is. So let's say it's in the ovaries. It's in that net of divinity, you're pulling it out, you're pushing it into your vortex, into your portal to these 3 different places, and then you're putting it in, and then you're closing it. And you might have to do this 2 or 3 times. Don't overthink the structure. Stay with the understanding that this entity is created by emotion, attachment, desire, obsessive thinking. That's how it's created. It's not real. It doesn't actually exist. It's just energy. This is energy. This is 3 places. This is 3 places. Therefore, I can dissolve this back into nothingness. So we're pulling it out, and then we're just dissolving it away, and then you run more chi and prana through the body. You might find another one. You might not get it the first time. It might move somewhere else, and then you have to kind of take it out of the body, and then you're working with level 1. You're bringing more chi, more prana into the body, increasing their life force, and then bringing their body into a positive state. So this is one way you could do it. You could also work with a tetrahedron, like a Merkaba. You take 2 pyramids, one's facing up this way, one's facing that way, and you're learning to make energetic structures in your hands with divinity. So you take the divinity in your hands, then you create two pyramids opposing, like a Merkaba, and then you find where this entity is, and you just kind of put the pyramids in their body, into their ovaries, and you flick one way, one the other way, and they just spin around, and it just dissolves. And in this Merkaba, it's taking you to these three places. It's imagination. This entity was created through imagination. It was created through imagination, belief, a lot of emotion, and a lot of energy. So you're going to dissolve it in the same way. So the way you dissolve it, it's not a set structure. It's your relationship to it. It's your belief. It's your connection with energy. It's the energy that you can feel in your hands. And if you've had an entity in your body, then you're not disbelieving it. And if you've removed an entity from somebody, you haven't told them what you're doing, and then you've seen the reactions, then you're not disbelieving it, because that stuff happens. Exorcism is a very real thing. So that's fundamentally how we work with entities. We need to understand what they are, how they're created, and the process of dissolving them. And here's 2 processes to dissolve them, but you could make up some more, as long as you keep the fundamental concepts. So we're dissolving the entity because it's created through emotion, attachment, belief, intention. So we use those same things to dissolve it into nothing, into nothingness. And it's just very important to know more why we do something and how it's created than was it clockwise or anti-clockwise to open the portal? Did he put his hands like this or like this? Was it like this or was it like this? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're confident and that you have a belief when you walk into their body, and that you know this works, and there's no doubt. There's no doubt, there's no fear, and then it totally works.
Just thinking about the potentiality of someone having an entity that gives them a lot of power and strength, and then removing that and the person feeling very tired, low energy, like they lost some power.
Yeah, that's what happens a lot. So we're not going to go into a sense of good or bad. Often people are very attached. So the process needs to be, you're doing spiritual, personal development, you're trying to become an embodiment of your higher self, because your higher self has a hell of a lot of power. But if you're completely out of touch of your higher self and you've given up on life and reality, and you're just like, okay, this version of your human is not really going to do very much in this life, then sure, it's much more entities and demonic entities. You look at some people, their soul is gone. They are entities. They are spirits. When you think of what jinns are in the Muslim faith, you have positive jinns, like benevolent jinns, and quite devious jinns. So I'm not an expert on this, but we are basically of the earth in our human form as an elemental being. A jinn is an elemental being of fire, so it's more immortal. So it's a spirit, it's an immortal sense of consciousness. And jinns come into people's bodies, and if you could think of it in one way, that Shakespeare was probably a jinn. Steven Spielberg, probably a jinn. It's a spirit that comes into you, which is just a hell of a lot of knowledge, incredibly creative, can write, can be passionate, comes into your body, merges with you in a sense. Think of it, the process of Kundalini, of energy ascending upwards. So a spirit, an entity can merge with your body and bring you into a higher state of consciousness. A jinn, fire elemental being, can come into your body and stay with you and live with you for a period of time and enhance you. Other jinns come into your body and fucking destroy you. In the Muslim faith, there isn't mental illness. I was reading some of the journals that there is jinn possession. So if you go into a psychosis, you're threat for being possessed by a jinn. It's a religious thing. Mental health doesn't really exist. You just have negative jinns in your body. And a lot of people have theories of them. They like to live in nature. A lot of them don't like to be around people. You're more likely to meet them in nature. And we don't really want to see these things as good or bad, but the work is always coming back to being an embodiment of my higher self, trying to ground as many higher dimensional energies into my body as I want to, as you're able to. And from there, I have no judgment or no perspective or any dogma. I'm not telling you to do it or not do it. If you want to merge with deities and let them into your body to enhance your consciousness. If you want to worship Lakshmi to have more money, or worship Kali in order to dissolve your ego and feel protected, or any of the Greek gods, Hera, to attract a beautiful man into your life, or Eros to control somebody with lust. You know, you see you get into a negative state when you work with a lot of different demigods, or Hercules, because you just like doing a lot of tasks. Or Hermes, you know, Hermes, Thoth, Merlin, same consciousness, same energy. We put Merlin, there's lots of Merlins in the world, and Thoth is Egyptian, and Hermes is Greek, but it's all the same. It's just the culture that you relate to it from. Egypt, another really, really interesting culture, and these things are great for our mind, for our information, to keep fueling our experience of life. If we just put them all away and do nothing, we all have to be nuns and priests and not forego any carnal pleasure ever again. So I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but if you have a client and it's having a very detrimental effect on their life, you're able to take it out. And if you're going into activation spaces or plant medicine circles, hopefully you've got a little bit more of an idea of what's going on in the astral level when everybody's laying down and things are opening up and things are coming into the body and people are going into bliss, and doing all of this can be incredibly healing, defining your aura and open you up, can rape you, can take your good karma away. So you just have to have a very positive vibration in your body and have a strong intention and be devoted to nothingness. Or God, whichever word you want to use.
Plants have entities, right?
Yeah, plants are a consciousness, is an energy. Ayahuasca, plant medicine circles, you'll have a lot of entities, astral beings, thought forms. Every plant has a consciousness, has a vibration. It's a beautiful world, right? It's mystical. There's so much we don't know. And I like to just keep going back into the mysticism and the unknown as much as science helps, and so much of what we're learning is basically backed up by quantum physics and quantum science. It's lovely to come back into the mystery. One more maybe important thing, it's good not to take it too seriously. And if ever you can laugh at an entity and take the piss, that's good. Because if you take it too seriously, it exists more. If you start to give it a name, if you give it one name, then, oh, I have a name. If you give it 5 names and I keep changing the name, then it doesn't really have a name. If you're afraid of it, it has more power, it exists more. If you can kind of just keep this as like a little bit fun and laugh at it, like, oh, look what you did. You created an entity of self-hate and loathing. Oh, that's kind of funny. Let's take it out. Do you still hate yourself? Just try to be playful with it, because then you're not giving it power.
Is there a way to protect yourself? Because example given, if I pray to Lakshmi or have my my shamanic spirits to not having those entities removed from myself? Or would it simply be my higher self wants to stay in this connection with those energies?
So when we're cutting cords, and when I'm going to cut somebody's cords, for that exact reason, I often tell them that whatever you love stays. Whatever's meant for you stays. You don't want to cut the cords to a mother has with her child. That's there for a reason. You don't want to cut all the cords with your friends, because then how are you going to live in the fifth dimensional reality, and how are they going to appear in front of you when you think of them? Because you've cut all the cords. So what you're attached to is it's going to stay. So if you're really attached to having that self-loathing and self-hate, and you feel like it serves you, because you're not going to be motivated otherwise, it's going to be much harder to let it go. So doing the non-dual psychology and the coaching and working with the mind and getting somebody to a different place is kind of essential before you take the entities away. Otherwise they're too attached and they're just going to bring it back, because they're just going to go back into this negative thought pattern. So as much as we work with non-dual psychology, in coaching, we're always giving people homework, basic hypnotherapy for the body, which is also for the mind, giving them intention work, making them focus on what they want, reaffirming affirmations, intentions, so it doesn't come back. Because if you're a vibrational match for it, it's gonna come back. So if you're a vibrational match for Lakshmi, she's probably not gonna leave if you're attached.
He asked, how do you protect yourself after?
Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. The best way to protect yourself is not to do it. Don't clear entities for people. It's ridiculous. You're taking like a negative entity that can get out of their body and jump into yours and take you over. It's mental, mate. Why would you do that? Shouldn't do this.
I know I want to protect my entities.
Sorry, it's just good not to. You don't have to. So go back to that state that you don't have to, and don't be a vibrational match for their entity. Don't be a vibrational match for a desire for power, which isn't coming from clarity. From my, again, understandings of emotions, above power is clarity. So if you have a lot of clarity, that power is not really power anymore.
I heard stories from like shamanic traditions. People do like payeras with plants for a month, and the shamans can steal them. And it would be quite sad if I do my sadhana and I work with some deity, and then this could be taken away from me. This work and emotion I put in. But yeah.
Yes, so that's a mental construct again. So yeah, if that person is from my mental construct, if you're putting this shaman on a pedestal above you, and then you're doing all of this work, and that shaman has the desire to take this from you, then you're a vibrational match to giving it. You don't exist, you're just a reflection of me. So obviously I want you to take this from me. If I didn't, you wouldn't have been able to take it. If your belief is not, so you're saying he's more powerful. So you just said exactly what I said. You've decided he's more powerful than you on ayahuasca because of da 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 da. Because it's the intention and the vibration, from what I teach you, is what allows him to take it.
What is the process that you use to invite entities into someone's body with their permission, because they've asked for it? And it's not even called entities, like thought patterns, beliefs, and positive stuff that would serve them.
So I would connect to their higher self and support in the higher aspects of them. So in this work, we are not taking a mantra, chanting it into their spine. You're not creating energetic structures, geometric patterns that have meaning, that you're infusing with intention and with divinity and with desire and with meaning, and you're not creating energetic structures, and you're not installing them into their chakras and into their spine, because what a deity is, it's a mantra being, it's a geometric pattern of sound and vibration and information that's resonant on different chakras that can enter your body from an astral realm. Whereas you are of a different culture and faith of your clients, then that's probably not the best information for them. So I'm not doing that. That's not what this work is. Very specifically, that is not what this work is. You can install these mantras and sacred geometric patterns and work with divinity in your body, and you can just be completely devoted to Jesus, nothing but Jesus. And it's the same work in Christianity when people go into satanic rituals, and this other church what's that church called? The Pentagast Church is a kind of a subdivision of the normal church, and they're kind of rewriting the Testament because they're having direct experiences of Jesus in the body, and people are coming to the priest. There's a room of 500 people. They've all got super high energy. The priest is completely devoted to Jesus. They're coming up. He's putting their hand on them. They're going into shaking, and then Jesus is in their body, and they're out cold. Oh my God, Jesus is inside me. So it's no different. It's absolutely no different. But that's what they're doing. They're devoted to Jesus completely. That essence, that energy. Jesus doesn't exist in that sense. He's an ascended master of an 8th dimensional consciousness. He's Christ consciousness. He's every single one of us. It's the vibration, it's the frequency of Jesus. And they're in love with it, and they're devoted to it, and they die for it. So they're able to put Jesus into the body. But they're only focused on Jesus and Christianity. And that's why it works. So when you're putting, I don't know, Egyptian deities and goddesses into somebody's body, maybe it's not right for them. Maybe they're of a Hindu faith, so Hindu gods are more right for them. So we just want to open up somebody's energetic body, their grid, their matrix, their astral realm, the information within them, what their soul needs to learn in this life, what's beneficial for them, this balance between free will within the multiverse. So you're always allowing the highest aspects of them, their parts of their soul, what they're connected to come back.
Do you have a process of how to find the answer you're for, or are you intuitively just, it comes up throughout the system?
I have a knowingness, and I see things, so the more of the clairs you can work on, that's great. You can muscle test. What we're going to learn in the process of removing an entity and charging organs and glands to create our car body, our astral body, so that we have this kind of divine energetic body as well as our chi, prana, energetic body, our spiritual body, car body, astral body, whatever you want to call it. The process is very similar. So if you're not sure, you can just try this process. It's very similar. It's really your focus. If you feel like it's there, you can just try. But we're going to practice this afternoon. So we're just going to do a little hand movement now. Going to breathe into your spine. Going to channel this sense of, did you all, you know the piece of paper that you use as a spine? Did you all have time to like read it and try to understand this very simple definition of the highest tantra? Yeah, where it talked about separation, non-duality and separation together. Talked about time, polarity, this picture, a lot of different words that can connect us to this sense of what we're pulling down our spine. Yeah, that one. So if you can work with those concepts, the web of life, in every meditation in the morning, these are really teaching us how to do the work. Because as we're meditating with this energy, we're learning to run it through our body, we're learning to sense it, to feel it, to open the chakras emotionally, to open the chakras on the astral levels, to sense consciousness moving through the body, to clean our third eye, to open our crown, to define our aura. So every meditation is the attunement. If you're attuned to Reiki, somebody attunes you to it. You're attuned to this energy every day, every time you have a session by meditating with it. The more you meditate with it, you're just going to be devotional to this sense of divinity, devotional to non-duality, to nothingness, to the you have to find that sense of devotion to the energy, so the energy lives in your body, but the energy that's living in our body is the highest aspiration that we can attain. It's this non-dual awareness. Just think of quantum physics, string theory, it's very clean. So that's the energy that we're connecting to, okay? So as we're connecting to that energy and we're learning to pull that down through our crown into our spine, then we take our hands and we find this kind of web. So you're just finding that in your hands. And then you're going to figure out, for me, opening portal is anti-clockwise. So you're going to open that portal. You're going to be working with those 3 places in your mind. If you can't remember the 3, just see what 3 you can find now. I'll remind you later. Opening that portal to those 3 places. Seeing how the work is completely reflected. So one of those places is about polarity. One of those places is about time and karma. One of those places is about non-dual awareness. Really, they're all about the same thing. So you're opening that portal, working paradoxically, black sun, Saturn the planet, the void, and then you're going to take your hands again, that portal stays open, you create this net of divinity, so you feel it, like you feel this blue web net, this quantum energy field in your hands, in a located place, in space, in time, and you throw it over the organ. We'll say, just focus on the ovaries, imagine the ovaries are there, and then you wait until you feel like you have it, and you're just pulling this net, and it can't get out. And you pull this net of divinity, and you put it in your portal, and then you're just closing the portal. Maybe you have to do that net 2 or 3 times before you close the portal. You don't overthink anything. It's not about right or wrong. It was created with imagination, belief, and energy. So you're going to destroy it, transform it, dissolve it with imagination, belief, and energy. And then the other way you can do it is you can create this Merkaba, these 2 pyramids in between your hands. You create an energetic structure of a Merkaba, of 2 pyramids inside of each other. And then you pat it over the body, and you're connecting to those 3 places through these 2 pyramids. Pyramids have 3 sides. Still polarity is there, there's 2 of them. And then you spin it around, and then everything just dissolves inside that Merkaba, in that pyramid, going to these 3 places, like a portal. You just have to stay with your imagination, your understanding of reality to do this work. Then if we were working on the spine, you just imagine somebody's in front of you. You create this divinity in your hand. Maybe you work with your breath, maybe you work with pranayama, and then you're going to just pull your hand up past the chord. If you feel like you found a chord, maybe you take 2 hands, you feel like it's dense, then you're just kind of going to get hold of it like you're pulling a tick out. You have a little twist and you pull it from the spine. You pull it from the spine and you just let it dissolve and let it go. Clear. Make sure you have energetic sovereignty. Make sure they have energetic sovereignty. Maybe there's a bubble covering both of you. You create this energetic field of sovereignty, of space. You're not connecting with anything other than divine, God, nothingness, purity. And then you're just increasing the chi and the prana through their legs, down their crown, starting to expand their body so everything's just repaired and healed.
What about having contracts? Like there's also contracts with entities, and that's why they stay. So if one goes in to another person's energy field and they already have a contract, but it's not serving them in that moment, what happens if you're kind of breaking the contract in the middle or interfering in it, and that removes it? Because that happens a lot.
So I'll answer that question and go back to the first. So the second question, I don't give a fuck. I ask the human what they want, and I talk to them, and then I open their field, and I hold space. And if this entity is negative, and it comes out, it comes out. If they're very attached to it, it's going to stay.
You don't give a fuck about what?
About any contracts that they may or may not have, and it's just too much. I'm very simple. This is the human. This is the base level of reality. This is kind of as low as we get. This is basically hell, in case you didn't know, like physical reality, living in separation. This is hell. You can create a much worse hell in your mind, but it's pretty much in your mind. Hell can be beautiful. It's just about polarity. It's about separation. We're letting the highest aspirations of consciousness into our body. We have free will in that sense that we can choose what we do, what we let into our body. The more we can evolve our mind and understand, the better choices that we can make. So my only job is to care about the human on the physical, mental, and emotional level with some spiritual understanding in order for them to become more spiritual. So I won't take responsibility for any of these things. I'm very simple. So if there's a contract, it's just going to come back. If you're really attached to it, it's going to come back. It's karma, really. We all have different karma, we have different beliefs. The more you look at, oh, but this person had their life force stolen, who knows? Maybe they deserved it from a past life. You can create all of these things around it. All I'm going to do is lay somebody down, help them increase their body full of chi and prana, find emotion, and make their emotion positive, get them connect to a positive intention to do something good in the world. And if there's disease and sickness and entities in their body, I'm going to teach them to remove them themselves. And occasionally, I'm going to do this work because I just feel like, you know, this is just something horrible living in the womb. This woman can't get pregnant. She doesn't understand enough. She'd probably be a good mom, or I'm going to take it out. Fuck it. That's it. Then on your other question, did anybody read the tantric embodiment exercises in the course? Basically, it's worship, it's devotion, it's creating a connection. In the same way, we're removing the entities by having desire, having attachment, having ritual, having ceremony. You find the incense and the crystals and the flowers, and every day you put them at the altar and you create the mantra and the chant and you give your life force. You know, if you're really crazy, you cut your finger and you give it blood and money and sexual fluids, and then the more of your life force and your chi and your blood and your sexual fluids you pour into the entity, the more real the entity is, and then it is actually possible that this entity will throw you across the room and fuck you. And I've had some clients who have needed these entities removing from their life, and that gets a bit more difficult, and she's okay now, but for 2 years she was just being fucked by an entity. It would just pin her to the bed. The beginning she liked it, and then it kind of destroyed her life. So don't take it too seriously. You're just removing thought forms of lust and greed and self-loathing, and lower astral beings that manage to get into your organs and glands. Yeah, it's debatable, because when I cut a cord, I do it in a very similar way. I find the energy, I put my hand on, I see it a little bit like a tick, you know, those little things that bite you and they twist in. So I kind of twist it out from the spine, but it doesn't feel fair, so I try to suck as much energy as I can back from it, and then I give it back to the person. But then sometimes, like, I see these like horrible things that try and get me. So again, probably don't cut cords and pull the energy back and give it to the person. But then if you do, you know, I'm okay. To the person, because it's sucked all their energy. So you cut the cord and it's siphoning their life force, so you're just like a straw, give it back. If somebody creates a lot of negativity, you have the choice to send it back to the person who created it or dissolve it. And you should dissolve it. You shouldn't send it back. But if you haven't done enough spiritual and personal development, when you feel it and you feel how bad it is, you might just get really angry and want to send it back to the person who created it and be like, deal with your shit. But potentially that's going to create more problems in reality and give you more negative karma. So you should probably dissolve it. But life is complicated from that aspect. That's like saying nobody should ever go to prison, they should only ever be forgiven. Nobody should ever be punished, they should only ever be forgiven. And that's a very spiritual level of understanding reality. So you need to notice within yourself, when you feel these things, are you overwhelmed with vengeance, anger, rage, self-righteousness, that you know better? And then potentially you're going to start having these fights in the astral world with negative entities and different things. So what you should do is do a lot of self-development work before you do this, so you don't fall into your self-righteousness and your feelings of vengeance, and you're not overcome by anger and then you start lashing back at them, because most likely it's going to have more of a negative reoccurrence to you, because in this sense it's karma. That's what we're taking away from the person, is karma. In very traditional Shaktipat settings, from what I've read, I wasn't there 1,000 years ago, you would follow a guru, you'd be devoted to him for 6 years, he would do something called darshan, which from my understanding is different to dikshan. Dikshan is more charitable giving to a guru. Darshan is more emergence with the guru's consciousness. So they will create a big mandala, they'd have a huge ritual, everything would be infused with divinity, they would just be channeling energy and infusing objects full of divinity. That's how we raise the vibration of our planet, of our consciousness, is to just make all physical matter, fill it full of divinity and chi and prana, so when you walk into a room it feels better. Then they would go through a long process. The guru would take the disciples' karma, their good karma, their bad karma, all of their power essentially, and then the disciple would be free from samskara, so they wouldn't reincarnate again, whereas the guru would continue to try and remove people from samskara, our reality, which can be heaven or hell, it's up to you. And again, this isn't good or bad. These people don't want to exist anymore. But they're taking the good karma and the bad karma. And that's really what you want to be aware of when you're doing energetic work. It's so much of it is about karma. So when you come to help this person, you're affecting their karma. This is why a lot of spiritual people say you don't help anybody, you just become the highest vibration that you can be, and you live in your bliss and you just wait for the world to catch up. I think it's working, so I'm not doing that. It'd be a bit boring as well. I'd probably just end up being a plumber or something.
Certain laws that we really believe in, like the law of karma, is that a construct? Do laws exist? I don't know if you know this question. I know the answer to this question, but the law of gravity, the law of karma, the law of attraction, and like all these laws.
It depends on your understanding of karma, because my understanding of karma is it means cause and effect. For every action, there's a reaction. So to get out of polarity, you need to have no karma. So there's no action, so there's no reaction.
But it's a law.
Yes, for every action, there's an action.
But laws stay the same. Laws don't change according to different constructs of people's mind, because that's a law. So
But according to the law of physics, bees can't fly, but bees fly. According to the many laws of physics and biology and human evolution, is showing us that we're in relationship to reality. So the more we evolve ourselves, suddenly we can, when you should die of hypothermia, but because you meditate a lot, then you don't, you're defying laws. So is that not the point of our human existence, is to push boundaries, change laws, question things.
Yeah, so laws are also astral. Again, like everything.
The law of polarity, law of karma, for every cause is an effect. We live in separation. In that sense, we're here, well, a spiritual path is trying to break that law. You're trying to break the law of polarity by not being separate anymore. But if we take the course to become the embodiment of universal law, some people will say there's 7 universal laws, some people will say there's 12. Karma, universal law, has more impact, it has more power the more you believe in it. So the more you say the, we'll just stick with Lakshmi, the more you recite the mantra to Lakshmi, the more power it has, the more it makes you feel, the more devotional you feel. You say it the first time, doesn't really do very much. The more you believe in karma, the more real it is. The more you work with the law of attraction, the more you practice it, you have an experience which backs up your belief. So now you have more belief and more confidence in that law becomes more powerful. So you're giving your power to these laws. So the training is saying align yourself with universal law, which is an understanding of magnetism, polarity, vibration, frequency, masculine, feminine energy, working with, well, from that sense that polarity is the truth, but it's a paradox because polarity can't really exist unless there's 3 things. So everything's a trinity, thus nothing ever really makes sense. That's what we're trying to align ourselves to. We're aligning ourselves to the acceptance of the mystery, to the acceptance of universal law, and it has more power. But if you don't believe in karma, you wouldn't be here because it's cause and effect. But if you focus on universal law and you're only receiving what you're a vibrational match for and you're increasing your frequency, when you do all the mental work and the forgiveness, then if you're no longer a vibrational match for it and you're really aligned to universal law, it's very hard for it to still exist in your body. It's just going to move through your field because everything's changing. And this process of why is it here, boom, 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 is very useful. And that's what we do on the mental and emotional level. But when you get onto a spiritual level, linear time is not so linear. So why is this here? Is it something from the past? Is it something from the future? Is it something from your ancestors? Is it all 3 of these things at the same time? And that's why it's here. But now your mind is so pinpointed on this thing. So I wouldn't make anything spiritual defined. I would always keep it as a mystery, as a paradox, that it's in 3 or 4 different places, it has multiple meanings, and really I'm just going to come all the way back to the grounded human experience. Are you happy? No? Okay, what can we do to make you happy? And then just, it's great to know all of this, but you get lost in it. And we just want to come back to, this is Gaia, this is the sun, this is okay, we live within these 5 elements, and how do we bring more bliss and joy into the body? And to stay away from too many mental constructs. But I'm giving you a mental construct, and I'm inviting you to have your own.